masculinity. Let me start by masculinity before we add the toxic word on it. I think it's everything that defines a man, everything that sets a man, makes a man different from the female, the other gender. And there are so many good things that defines a man, but then there are other things that are now the toxic part that the society have set, or maybe cultures have set, that might not necessarily be right, and so that's where the toxic part comes in. Yes, that's my definition.
Okay, to you, Danko.
I think for me, what you said is quite true. What I identify with as a man, and what sets me apart, like you said, is what I identify as masculinity. Although growing up, you find that you start learning some of these things way too early, because you're being set apart. You're not being allowed to grow into it. You're being forced to conform. So that one for unalia, like I remember I used to get that from my dad a lot, God rest his soul. Wacha kulia kama msichana, and I'm what? I'm 5. Nimekanyangwa, or we are playing outside with kids, and then if you're the first kupatikana, that atitapo each. I don't know whether people play those things anymore nowadays. Just video games.
Yeah.
But it was very bad, because it was when you were 8, like it meant you're weak.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. Like if in fact it was worse if you played with girls, and then you were the first to be 8. Like you wonder how fast are the girls? And I was not always this big, trust me. This came later. So I think what identify with as a man is what I call masculinity. However, me being rushed to accept and conform is what breeds toxicity inside of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, awesome. Pasi?
Well, that's a heavy statement.
Yes.
Toxic masculinity. So let's just start with masculinity.
Yes.
Like your base.
Yeah.
Masculinity for me is the art of being a man. Yeah. In simplicity, it's the art of being a man. Right. When you add the word toxic, it's anything that becomes an excess of how you should be as a man. It's anything that becomes a foreign addition that does not have a positive influence on you being a man. Now, I know there are many things we might debate about masculinity, It's based on your exposure and your background. Just like Danko has said, because it depends with the context you grew in. Because some things that might be considered toxic in some places might not be, because based on how someone grew, that was normal, Since we grew up playing, what was this game? Choboua. Yeah? And for us, it was a game. So one day, we reinvented something around that game, still in primary school. And we decided to look for the mole anthill, where when the mole digs, the soil comes up. We put a stick, then everyone has to remove some sand without dropping the stick. If it falls on your knee, you have to go and tap the staff room door. And the staff room was like 400 meters. And one day one guy touched and the stick fell. And the way guys were on him, he had blood from his mouth, and it was a game. That was a game.
Mob
so,
justice.
It looks like mob justice, and that was a game. Wow. So for someone who grows in that context where, even the games were very rough and, rugged, you might think that person is toxic because of the way maybe he handles himself, but it's the background of his growing. Right. Yeah, we need to understand settings, but then still there are some things that we will have to consider as toxic. There are some things that are unacceptable either way in any cultural setting or wherever you grew up. They're just not right.
Yeah. Oh wow, interesting. I would love to hear this definition of a man. Who is a man, Yubis?
I think from from creation, I think God has created a man to be wild in some sort. Ukiangalia hata a young boy, you know, from the word go, they want to jump from high places, just dangerous games. They want, they're riding a bike, they want to go fast, and then they don't even want to use the brakes. They want to brake with their feet and all that. So I think a man is wild. A man is, you know, just adventurous in some way. And there's a book I read that says a man wants an adventure to live, you know, a battle to fight, and a beauty to rescue.
Hey, hey, Mr. That's why you're called Mr. Right, huh? Yeah? Okay, sawa. Danko, what do you think?
Well, I won't say I think, because I am a man.
Okay. What? Define you.
Yeah, so I am a man. I think when God was creating man, was when he spoke to existence the very nature of man, as he was breathing into him, I think he put in his mind and his heart, his mind and might, in man. But then the heart is what I think came with women, if I'm not wrong. From his rib came the heart of God. So if you ask me, so I think a man is, you know, even when you look at the Bible in ancient times, there was that, like, when a man speaks, his word is final. So it's the word of God. And that's why we are high priests in the house, in the home. We are the ones who hear from God and then disseminate the information to the rest of the family. So there's this mighty, and also the might of God and the mind of God. Like, a man is just a man. Like, when he says we move, we move. When he wants to fight, he stands to fight. Then there's now the compassion side, the compassionate side, which is the heart of God that loves, which maybe we loved from our ribs, which now God, you know, placed in the woman when he created woman. So it's very hard to define who a man is, like using English, but rosafi.
It is what it is.
Yes.
Awesome. Percy?
Who is a man? Wow.
Yes.
A man is a male figure.
Yeah.
These days, we have to define some things that don't need definition.
Yeah.
The world has become twisted. So a man is a male figure.
Yes.
One. A man is a leader. A man is the image of God. Yeah. The Bible says that God made man in his own image and likeness. So the closest representation of God you have is a man. Yeah. If he walks in the ways of the Lord, that is.
Right.
Yeah. And the general definition of man, you know, there would be so many ways of defining a man. But a man is one who takes charge and takes responsibility for the things that are around him. If you look at the Bible, even from Genesis, the thing that identified Adam as man is because he was put to do a certain job in the garden. He was given an assignment. So a man is one who pursues an assignment that God has given him, or they have found, or a purpose in life, and they are after doing what God has called them to do. That would be my definition of a man. Yes, but the most important one, a man is a male figure. Yeah, okay. These days even there are ladies who want to call themselves men, and there are females who want to call themselves men. So yes.
Yeah. So statistics show that there's a lot of violence that happens in our homes, and when I mean violence, I mean abuse, I mean rape, and all that. But also they show that a high percentage is from men. So I would love to know, is it because of father wounds, or is it because of how they've been brought out, or what makes them to come to a point where now they get violent? And, you know, even being a man, they will just saying, mwanaume ni uzito, like kuwa tough, you know, just be tough as a man. So I wanted to know, where is that coming from? Maybe I can start with you, Danko.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, sadly. The statistics actually are very right. Yeah. That when we talk about force, abuse of any nature, when we talk about, you know, this the vices that happen in the homestead actually more propagated by the men. But I'll take you back to when I said the toxic part of masculinity starts when a man or young boy is being forced to conform to a pattern which we found with our grandfathers, we found with our fathers. You see now, as it is going down, like I know how you raise. You have a son, or
Yes, I have a son.
You have a son. It's how you raise your son is not how you were raised, and not
Definitely.
how your father was raised. So it's like it's becoming more and more.
We're refining it as we go.
Exactly, we're refining it as we go.
Yeah.
But you can imagine, this young boy. You were talking about you and your cousins. You'd see the boys being hand rough. So this boy does not have a chance to express themselves. So he bottles up a lot of these emotions. And remember, he cannot express himself because men don't cry. That's what he's being told. Ukikaa mahali kuna wazee. And then, because we learn more from looking, so how are we seeing our fathers? I've never seen my father cry. In fact, akitaka kulia, like he'll always excuse himself, or when he's too emotional, when things are too emotional, like, you know, he'll excuse himself. So I want to be like my dad. So you always have this superhero attitude, like, you know, let me be hard. But when in the quest of being hard and very macho and masculine, you don't deal with a few issues that later on in life will implode. So they'll burst out inside of you because there's a child inside of you that never cried when they were meant to cry. There's a child inside of you that was never vulnerable when they were meant to be vulnerable. So these things come out in different ways. They express themselves in different ways. And sadly, abuse is one of them, where they feel like, and you know, ladies, when they grow up, like they have all the information. I'll give you an example. Back when I was, I was married. Like when it was an argument, my wife would have facts. Like, she has, like, how can you remember all that? Like, wow, yes, you said this, you said this. So me, I'm in conflict with myself because I'm asking myself, how can I not remember these facts? Like, how can she have all these facts? And sometimes you feel the anger boiling in you because you're angry at yourself, and you're like, then why are you reminding me of a weak? So exemplifying weakness as a man is actually trying to bring him out of the cage and become wild. So basically, in a nutshell, if you ask me. So abuse starts from a very young age of not dealing with issues that were pumped into you, and opportunities there were no opportunities of just speaking them out or sharing or expressing.
Okay, Patty?
When it comes to a lot of abuse, you realize that people don't know how to deal with emotions. And I think this has been one of the weaknesses or the toxicity in masculinity, is we are never taught, or we don't have the opportunity to learn how to deal with emotions. Maybe probably everyone in this room, if you ask them how many times they have ever seen their father cry, probably none. Yeah. How many times have they ever seen their fathers frustrated? Probably they will be guessing. They are not sure. And I think when it comes to a lot of abuse in the society, it's true, men are leaders, you know? It's natural. Men will lead. So that's why you will find even that statistics are that high for men. Because they'll be the people leading in that space of not doing the right thing. Now, the challenge for me, I find, is most people have not learned to deal with their emotions, and the way they express their emotions becomes a problem. Yeah. If when we were young boys, we were playing choboa, and that was a way of expressing our emotion, you know? As in, that is, and you'll beat someone probably to the point of where they need to be checked in hospital. And it was a game, you know? And when all of you are called, you're like, we were just playing. It was not that serious, you know? That tells you people didn't know how to express themselves. There is this energy, there is this desire for adventure, but people don't know how to channel it to the right place. So in those circumstances and instances, you find that most people, when they get to that level, they do probably what they saw others do. Yeah. Either you grew in a home where there was violence, or they just have learned on their own way. You see, identity is the most important thing for a man. When you miss that level of identity, the thing that, there are women who will tell you, ujai chapa, wewe ni mwanaume. You know, the people who will think, kama hajai chapana, si mwanaume. You know, you understand?
Yeah.
They don't feel like they are man enough until, there are people who in context, they will, even in their homes, they just want to raise uproar for no apparent reason, just to feel like I'm the man. And you see, that's an issue of identity.
Yeah.
So there is an issue of identity, there is an issue of expression of emotions. I'm angry, and what do I do with my anger? Yeah, I'm frustrated. I've come from work where I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
Then I come home and my wife is over here probably nagging, or the children. You see, how do I express that?
Yeah.
And how do I deal with those emotions that I'm having? And you'll find that in most of those contexts, that's why we end up with violence, we end up with abuse, we end up with other forms, because people are trying to deal with themselves, and it's because they do not know who they are.
Yeah.
They do not understand who they are. And secondly, they don't know how to deal with what they are feeling. And I think that's the biggest challenge for most men. How do I deal with my emotions? How do I deal with the feelings that I have? Because sometimes we think men are like rocks. They don't have emotions. It's a lie. Even us as men, sometimes we think, we are there, Yeah. But I am feeling something. It's just that I have never learned. I have never been taught. I have never seen people dealing with. Most of us learn things by hearing.
Yeah.
If you never sit down with men and tell you they are frustrated, and when you meet with them, they tell you everything is fine. My family, everything is okay. Even when you're like, things are going down, I am sure I can see, but they're telling you everything is okay. Even you'll adopt the same strategy. You'll mirror the same exact thing you're exposed to. And that's the reality of the situation. Who said here, boys learn by seeing, not by what you tell them. And it's the same thing. Most men have learned by either watching and listening to, rarely is listening, but mostly watching people they love and admire and the things they do. So in those situations where there is violence, I find that the lack of identity is the biggest contributor, and the lack of ability to deal with emotions.
Wow, your best?
So much wisdom going on here. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they were telling me of how they had no say growing up in the house. They had no say kabisa. The dad says it's like this, it's like this. If you go any other way, unachapo. So he was like, I can't wait to when I'll have the say. So growing up, he really wanted that independence and the freedom to do whatever he wants, whenever he pleases, and to be the boss, to be his dad, the version of his dad. And it's so unfortunate that most men who are, the toxic people, the ones who are, causing the commotion, all those things, they don't know better. It's what they were introduced to, it's all they know. They don't have an alternative way. And so whatever you sow, as Pasi said, whatever you sow and learned is what you're trying to reciprocate, and pia tulichapa tukiambiwa na kuchapa juu na kupenda. So wewe ukitaka ku-express love yako huko juu kwa wife yako. Ngumi mbili ni love enough. And also emotions have been bottled up ever since you were young boys. Sasa kwenye ina-eruptia the form at which it takes ina thrive. Kama hata hiyo form ni toxic. So it's really sad and unfortunate, but I think it's getting better as these conversations keep getting hard, and as people who have overcome you can now be exposed to something different, not what you grew up with, and ujue kumbe kuna alternative. And so I feel like having these conversations is important. So thank you.
This has been great for us. Thank you so much again, guys. God bless you so much. I know that there's so much healing happening in your heart. So feel free to communicate and to tell us more on what you want us to talk about. Until next time, bye-bye. God bless you.
The society has created like a benchmark based on how women express their vulnerability. And that's why we expect, you know, these days are here, you are being told, hey, you can cry, you know. You know, my wife, well, in our early days of marriage, she was like, I've never seen you cry. Do you never cry? I was like, why do I need to cry? I don't see the need for crying. So, how we express our vulnerability is very different. That's the first thing that every person needs to understand. And it's different from man to man, based on experiences and what they have learned.
When you hear the word vulnerable, the first thing that comes to your mind is opening up. Like having safe spaces to open up and talk to people about what you're going through. Sadly, we're dealing with this topic sometime back on radio, and most men were saying, even our wives sadly are not safe spaces for us to open up. Like the one person that you have chosen over 7 billion people over all the LDF, and they happen not to be a safe space for you to open up.
I even heard somebody say they opened up to a pastor and then akasikia ametumika kwa sermon story yake. Tumekauka tu nje for like sasa hata kama pastor sio safe sana aenda kwa nani, you know.